5 minutes is to a quick run through 2,000 years of Dover's history, its growth and development. Maybe it's a tall order, and I may not make it. So if I don't, or if you want to know a lot more about the growth and development of Dover and all its streets, then of course there's the book. £12.99 in the shops. To you, my friends, £10. See me afterwards. Well, there we go. Well, where do we start? Well, we know that the Dower Valley has probably provided a landfall and a departure point for the continent for over 3,000 years, with the discovery in 1992 of the Bronze Age boat 6 metres below the streets of Dover, a seagoing craft. There's also evidence of people living around here in 2000 BC. Of course, the place, Dover, was very important to the Romans, and remains of a harbour close to the market square were found both in 1855 and more recently in the 50s. And then the York Street development in the 70s revealed 50 major Roman structures, including this, the Classis Britannica, the Roman naval fort for their fleet, situated on the western side of the River Dower, as it was then. And of course there was the Painted House, the Saxon shore defences that went right through the Painted House, and as well there were 2 lighthouses, one on the west cliff and one on the east cliff, the Pharos. And one of them, of course, survives to this day alongside St Mary in Castro. We know there was an Anglo-Saxon settlement by the 6th century within the walls of the Roman naval fort, which of course by then had been abandoned and the Romans had gone home. And we know that royal fleets sailed from Dover in 1036, 1051 and 1066. And the number of religious foundations at that time indicate the size and importance of the town. We have St Martin le Grand, or St Martin le Grand. Withred turned out the cannons from the castle settlement and sent them down into the town, and St Martin le Grand was built alongside what later became the market square. Oh dear, voice going already. And of course we have St Mary in Castro, which was a late 10th century and probably the site of another Anglo-Saxon settlement up on the top of the castle site. And we have St Mary's, St Mary the Virgin in the town. It may also date from Saxon times. It was built on the site of a Roman bathhouse. The bathhouse, of course, predated it, but the church itself was built by St Martin le Grand secular canons, but it was later rebuilt by the Normans. This is how it looked in about 1805. It was only needed its gutters cleaning out, but there we are. There was also Old St James Church, which is mentioned in Domesday. It was pre-conquest, but again, it was rebuilt by the Normans. Domesday Book valued the town at £40, double its estimated value in Edward the Confessor's time, despite William's men burning the town in 1066. At that time, there were possibly 400 townsmen who spent their time fishing, working the passage, boat building, farming, and of course piracy. Not to mention a bit of smuggling, I imagine. And by 1066, Dover had to supply to the king 20 ships, crewed by 15 plus a boy, for 15 days a year, either for transport or for war. And in exchange, the town got some special privileges. The ability to raise its own taxes, to run its own courts, and was entitled to make a charge for carrying the king's messengers. So that brings us up, certainly, to 1066, and moving on from then to about 1600. Well, there were settlements, various settlements around the Dover area. There's the military settlement on Castle Hill. There were the fishermen under the castle cliff, and some of the remains of their dwellings were found in a dig a few years back. There was the religious centre around St Martin-le-Grand and a commercial centre around Queen Street. This is a plan of St Martin's Priory, which was built from about 1130 onwards, using the revenues of old St Martin-le-Grand. I won't go into the dispute between Canterbury about why this all happened, but St Martin's Priory was built, but it marked the decline of St Martin-le-Grand, which was quite a substantial church. And from 1160, an 8-day November fair was held alongside St Martin-le-Grand until the dissolution of the monasteries. In 1141, St Bartholomew's Hospital, the old name for a hospital, of course, was somewhere where people could stay, not necessarily ill, and it was outside the town from Chapel Hill, somewhere like Buckland Terrace, down to the river, and it was for poor pilgrims and lepers. And then from 1180, Henry II's royal castle, his stone castle, dominated the town. And we had the Maison Dieu. This is how it looked in 1800.